Have you ever thought just how boring or ridiculous news commentary is today? Welcome to the Real Jacks Podcast with Jim and Larry. The Real Jacks Podcast. From crime and politics to entertainment, you can expect something different. Now, let's get real, Jacks.
Hey, welcome back to Real Jacks with Jim, Larry, and Crawfish. Today's special guest is my friend Bob Cooper, former JSO reserve officer that I worked with. We worked together for, 10, 15 years or something like that? You remember?
God bless America.
We're going to tell some stories about that. But he's also a former naval aviator in Rio. From the Vietnam era. We're going to get into some really good stories about that. Yeah. We've got his sweet daughter, Kimmy York, over here, who's married to my longtime friend, Dave York. So it's so good to see both of y'all. So before we get into your stories, Larry's got to read
quickly
some real quick sponsors.
So first one's Extreme Wings, 4 convenient locations, family sports restaurant and grill, more than just wings. Obviously, that's my employer. Tremendous Barbecue, open since 2007, 8927 Hurlong Road, open 11 to 8, Tuesday through Saturday and Sunday 11 to 3. Full barbecue menu, everything homemade, cater anything. They love first responders. Advanced Window Tent, 5024 Sunbeam Road, Ricky Tillman's company. Over 26 years experience here, 3M Platinum dealer. Highest level of 3M dealer around. They tent vehicles, homes, and businesses. Secure One Protection Services, Jim's company.
Since 1986, your number one choice for protection, 356-1111.
Absolutely. Dibble Roofing, since 1949. You can call Norm at 904-910-5728 or email Norm at norm.dibbleroofing@gmail.com. D-Way Towing, 100 South Jackson Avenue, Doug Dixon's company. Phone number is 904-356-3929. All your towing needs. Shannon Judge, Legends of Real Estate. Shannon Judge Real Estate at gmail.com. Phone number is 904-200-8158. Lastly, Bouncer Roof Fund, Mike Kellum's company, former JSO and friend, serving North Florida for over 15 years and over 10,000 parties. Bouncer Roof offers a large selection of inflatable hoppers, water slides, interactive games, concessions, and frozen drink. They offer large event tents with tables and chairs, and always discounts to first responders. If you rent on the weekend, you keep the equipment the whole weekend. That's it.
Beautiful. So Bob jumped up because on the screen up here that you can't see to our viewers and listeners, it said that he was a U.S. Navy helicopter pilot, and Bob was like, oh, hell no. No offense to all the helo guys, because I used to do that too, but Bob?
The thing about the helicopter, though, I was not a pilot. I was a rear seat F4, a Rio, radar intercept officer. But I love the helicopters. Thanks to the helicopters, although it was an Air Force helicopter that pulled me out of the jungle, I have a lot of respect for those guys. And they did some hairy missions over there. Really, really hairy.
So I just want to mention to people that, Bob, we worked together at JSO as volunteer reserve officers. And what year did you come on? I came on in 2004. I think you were there already when I came on.
Seems like it was 97.
Yeah.
My memory's not what it used to be.
I was thinking you were there like 5 years before me. 97. But Bob, let me tell you about Bob. So Bob was like, I think 70, when I came on.
And the oldest guy in the academy.
The oldest guy in the unit. And you'd walk in and he'd grab you and, give you that handshake and give you a hug. And he was like 180 pounds of, what's Dave say, twisted steel and sex appeal. But working with Bob, he's the kind of guy you wanted to work with, because if the shit went down, Bob would knock you out of the way to jump on the guy and take him down. You never had to worry about your back working with Bob, and Bob was 70 years old at the time. He'd handle it. He'd handle things. So I always liked working with Bob, because when we had to handle stuff, we handled stuff, and I never had a second thought working with you of making sure my butt was covered.
Well, you were one of the top guys to work with too. You're saying all that nice stuff about me, but you were just the same, and maybe a little better because you're younger.
We just had fun.
A little better looking.
I don't know about that. But we've got some stories we could tell about that, but we're going to skip that because we're going to focus mainly on his Navy career and being a Vietnam era aviator, flying around in F-4 Phantoms, radar intercept operator. And I want you to tell us about some of the stuff you saw leading up to maybe some action you got into, and then leading up to when you guys got shot down in the rescue.
Well, actually, it started before that. It started for me back in '55 when I was a senior in high school and on my way out the back door because I had senioritis so bad. And I thought, well, I'll join the Navy, go to Korea, and I won't have to get a lot of flack from my mom when I got home and she found out I failed out of high school. Fortunately for me, I joined the Navy, and I was in the aviation end of it. And I was assigned to a squadron that had Navy F-4U Corsairs, which is the one that Pappy Boyington flew in World War II, the Gull Wing.
With the little Gull Wing, you're right.
And I was sitting in my cockpit of the airplane that I was assigned to be a plane captain of, daydreaming and looking at the gauges and holding on to the stick and stuff. And I looked over to the right, and the chief was looking at me, and he stared at me, and he said, "Boy, you want to fly this? You not only have to graduate from high school, you have got to go to college." Kind of stunned me for a bit there, and I said, wow. I didn't say anything. He was a chief. So I said, "Yes, sir." Even though you don't normally say sir to a chief, I was a young sailor, so I just did what I thought was the best. In any case, at the end of the day, I went out to the main gate. Back then, we had to keep our motorcycles at the main gate. We weren't allowed to drive on the beach. And I jumped on my Harley and then hauled butt for home and said, "Mom, guess what I'm going to do?" And she said, "What?" I said, "I'm going to college," which is what I did. I went through in 3.5 years so I could get in the cockpit of a real Navy airplane. And I went through flight training and eventually ended up in Phantoms. I flew in a propeller airplane, the old Willie Fudd, which is a radar airplane back then. And I wrote a letter to the Bureau and asked if I could go to Phantoms. And they needed guys like me for the back seat of the new Phantom that was coming out. So I got into a Phantom. And from there, I was fortunate enough to get assigned to a squadron that was going to Vietnam. That's like, wow, put me in, Coach. I'm ready.
Yeah, that's your style.
That was, hey.
With your style.
We'd get there, and I was on an aircraft carrier, of course, and we'd launch off. And sometimes we'd be on bombing missions, rocket missions. Sometimes we were just looking for MiGs, which is the enemy airplane. And one of our tricks was to fly in close to a tanker, which is a big, slow
floating bomb.
A3D Sky Warrior. You may all not know what that is, but it's a two-engine bomber, originally made as a bomber. But then we didn't need them anymore except to carry extra gas, so we did that. In any case, I tuck in real close and put my radar on standby so it wouldn't emit any emissions that the bad guys could pick up on the ground and say, "Oh, there's a big airplane, but it's got a Phantom close to it," because they could tell from the electronics. Anyway, we would do that to try to suck them out. Put me in, Coach. I'm ready to roll. They wouldn't come out. So I had a kind of a uneventful air-to-air war, if you will. And one day I'm out on, can I call that asshole McNamara?
You just did.
It's okay. It's okay.
It's
we
okay.
don't care.
Hey, this is not live TV, so you can say whatever you
Anyway,
want.
this politician in Washington, I think he sold Ford motor cars at one time, was running the thing, and we did some stupid stuff. I mean, we'd fly by airfields, the enemy airfields, and couldn't touch them. We'd go by SAM sites that were what we called hard SAM sites. We couldn't touch them. The mobile SAM sites were the little Vietnamese people, the Viet Cong, were pulling them around on donkeys or whatever. We could get them. So that's one of my pet peeves about that. Anyway, we weren't supposed to fly near their airfields either. And if we had a downed airplane, we weren't supposed to go near it, which some of us would, irregardless. But, we had this big, important mission, the pilot and I, and we were out flying this day. One of McNamara's targets was a footbridge, a wooden footbridge, maybe, $56 to build one yourself? I mean, you can't believe it. So we were down flying. We were above the low altitude that we weren't supposed to go below. We were up there, and all of a sudden, ooh, what's that? Right under my seat. And then I saw this cutest, wispy-looking smoke come spiraling up. You couldn't believe. Just, nice and gray-looking. My pilot and I were discussing what happened. I mentioned to him, shut down the right engine, because the smoke was the closest to the right side of the airplane. And he did. And the smoke kept coming and kept coming and kept coming. Next thing we know is our oxygen is gone. We couldn't breathe, so we took our mask off. Well, you can only do that so long with a cockpit full of smoke. So I thought, well, I'll get rid of the smoke. And we hand signaled back and forth, and I blew my canopy off, just the canopy. What that did was cause a Venturi effect, which actually sucked up the flames. Mm-hmm. The flames were actually coming from the little compartment in the bottom of the airplane, the front of the plane, that had our liquid oxygen tank. And when the round that hit us hit that oxygen tank, it caused the fire. Now, this is afterthought. We couldn't think of all this while we were flying, trying to get our butts out over the ocean. So, next thing I know, I'm sitting in flames. I couldn't see them, but I could feel them because they burned through my flight suit and any exposed skin that I had on my face or my hands, because I should have been wearing my gloves, but I wasn't. And eventually I just looked up forward and waved to my pilot, positioned myself as I was supposed to, and pulled the curtain, and out I went.
So you guys didn't say, "Hey, I'm going to eject" or anything, or?
I can't.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, you didn't tell him that you were going to eject, or?
Well,
you guys didn't.
I could tell him in that I could shout.
Right.
You're fine. I'm not.
Yes. No, you're good. You're good.
Okay.
So you guys
we
concluded.
Lost our electronics. I mean, the wires were burnt and all kinds of things like that.
Oh, so your intercom wasn't working. So you kind of concluded it was time to bail out.
He knew enough to look in this rearview mirror. We had we used them to see if any MiGs were coming up to sneak up from behind us, and between the seat and the canopy, it was a space, and I could wave or hand signal, whatever. So he knew what I was doing, and I did what I knew I was going to do. And the next thing I know, I'm out feeling a twisting sensation. It's kind of a neat ride. And the next thing I know, I'm holding on to the risers, shredded skin hanging off my hands from the fire. And I was enjoying the best, quietest ride I ever had in my life coming down in that parachute.
So Bob,
wow.
So this is what's happening. You're an F4 Phantom. What year is this?
1965, October 28th, 1965.
65. That's when my brother was born, my 56-year-old brother. So you're an F4 Phantom.
Yeah.
Flames are coming through the floor. It's pretty clear that this plane is not going to remain airborne.
No.
You popped your canopy. You punched out with your rocket-powered ejection seat, shot up into the sky.
I wouldn't call it a rocket-powered. It was...
They're not rocket-powered?
Cartridges in
Cartridges,
there.
yeah. So
there were rocket seats, but the different airplanes had them than what we did. We had the Martin Baker ejection seat,
Gotcha.
which wasn't a rocket seat.
Okay, so it's just enough to get you out of the airplane.
Got my butt out in the air where it's supposed to.
So you go for which I heard is the craziest ride ever, to eject from a plane.
Yeah,
pretty intense sensation.
But it was unique. It was an experience that I don't say you should try sometime, but it was. I'm thinking or trying to think while all this is going on, and I'm being twisted around in the air, and the next thing I know, my hands are on the risers, and I'm going down slowly and peacefully via the parachute.
Yeah, into nowhere land, into who knows where.
Well,
right.
Except I knew where I was, and I had a choice to make pretty quick.
But you're dropping down into a forest or something,
I'm above 3,000 feet, and I said, now, where am I going to land? See, I had that choice somewhat.
You're out. Can you still see the aircraft? Do you see him punch out?
No. I never saw. I know he did, but I didn't see it.
Okay.
All I saw were jungle trees and an area that had little vegetation was called a karst area. It's like rocky, sandy stuff. Mm-hmm. And I knew if I landed in the rocky, sandy stuff, the karst, I'd be in deep trouble. I'd be easily seen by the bad guys. I didn't want that. My other option was to try the best I could to get into the trees of the jungle. And I realized people would land in the jungle and be hung up in the tree.
Yeah,
that didn't bother me, no. Because I had rope, if you will, that I could take from my survival vest and tie it to the tree and lower myself. And then another thing is I'm trying to pull on the risers of the parachute. Now, it's very difficult to take a round 28-foot military parachute and steer it. It's not like you see nowadays with those jumpers that can land on targets and things, But I did my best, and I'll tell you this, remind me at the end, I'll tell you what happened. And I landed in the trees. Yeah, good job, Bob. I landed, you wouldn't believe this, but I did. I landed on my feet.
Wow.
In about a half squat position where all I had to do was stand up and undo my parachute fittings. Bing! I'm free. And then I hear this, whatever language that is that they speak, I have no clue, but I could hear them.
They were close.
Now, imagine, just like Jim said, they were close. But thank God for the vegetation that hid me. They couldn't see through that. Of course, I couldn't see them either. Not that I was looking for them.
This is daytime?
This is daytime.
Gotcha.
It's just about 12 in the afternoon. Okay? And so I got my emergency radio out, and I could talk to one person that I remember now, one person, and it was an Air Force pilot in an A-1H, we used to call them ADs, Sky Raider. It's a single-engine propeller workhorse. Boy, that plane could carry some ordnance. And he was up there. He was what we call the rescue airborne guy, Combat Air Patrol. And he said, the helicopter's coming, and when I tell you, light off a flare. Okay, good. Meanwhile, I'm cognizant of these voices, and I don't want them to get any closer than I could.
And you're on a radio. You're talking on a radio to these guys, to your people.
To the Air Force guy.
Right, so you've got to keep your radio really quiet so the bad guys can't zoom in on you. So they hear your radio, they're going to know where you're at.
That's right.
Right.
But I couldn't describe which tree to the north or the south of.
Right. So, but this is
the
a pretty tough.
Guy, he says, "Where are you?" I said, "I'm down."
Yeah. This is a pretty tough situation. So you're in the jungle, trying to talk to your people on the radio to come get you, and you can actually hear the enemy right around you, and you've got to keep quiet enough so they don't find you.
Yeah, I couldn't be shouting, "Hey, I'm down wherever, whatever," 3rd and 5th Street together. No.
Right.
Tree.
Yeah,
Thank God.
You're in a tough spot though.
So,
The Air Force.
It's a bitch getting old.
Talking to the Air Force guy about your location. He said the helicopter's coming soon.
Yes, sir. So, okay. And I wanted to avoid the enemy. That was like number one in my head. Number two, stay off the trails. See, that's part of the training I had. You don't walk down Main Street when you're in the jungle. Right. You know, you climb over sticks or whatever, but don't take the trails because they know all the trails. It's their country, their street, their hood, you know. So next thing I know, the airplane says, okay, light off the day flare. And it consisted of orange smoke. And I would take the end that I was supposed to use for daytime because we had a night end too. Night end even had little bumps on it so you could feel it and say if you feel bumps, that's a night. That would be more of a fiery looking flare as opposed to the orange smoke that we use in the daytime. So what I did was when he told me, I lit it off. And it went up, I'll say 10 or 20 feet because being under the canopy of trees and the dampness, the smoke, I got a kick out of this even then. It went up maybe 10 or 20 feet and then it leveled out and floated along. How are they going to see that?
But now that you've kind of marked your location, it's a race for them to find you before the enemy finds you because they probably saw that too.
Exactly.
Right.
So
now it's on.
So
it's
guess what? The helicopter's coming. He's coming right for me. And I'm waving my arms like this. He missed me. And around he goes. And he did it again. And he came right for me. And I'm waving on. Oh, he got me. So they lower the jungle penetrator down to where I am. And it was a wire with a big steel ball on it. And attached to that was a seat. Now, the seat that I trained in before going to Vietnam, the prongs, the 3 prongs, were already spread out. I just jump on it and ride up.
It's like a grappling, almost like a little grappling hook.
Exactly. Yeah. Only 3 prongs, you know, but anyway. So I look at and see what this Air Force guy, it was an Air Force helicopter, by the way. Thank God for them.
And I'm guessing they got machine guns, machine gunners ready to do whatever they need to do?
No, it was a plain old rescue helicopter. It had 2 pilots and a crewman in the back.
So you guys are pretty vulnerable.
Oh, yeah.
To attack.
Well, I didn't get that far yet.
I just know how long he was down there before the helicopter came.
I was there on the ground about 2 hours before the helicopter came.
Which probably seemed like 24.
It didn't because I didn't have time to be scared. People say, well, weren't you scared? I said, hell no. I was doing what I was trained to do and trying to keep it in order. You know, I don't have time to be scared. So I did what I was supposed to do. And finally, there I am with a jungle penetrator. I said, what in the world is that? It was what they used. The seat was enclosed in a plastic zipper bag.
So somebody forgot to open it up for you.
So I said, I am not going to mess with that. I jumped on the steel ball, which was like, about 8 to 10 inches in diameter, wrapped my legs around the wire, wrapped my arms with the shredded skin around the cable, and I waited. See, we were trained to just hang on, let them do all the work. So they pulled me up, they reached out, they grabbed me and pulled me inside. And I say they, the one crewman who was available to do that, sat me down, and I said, you got any whiskey? I can't.
Now I can be scared.
Now I can be
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the pilot's doing his thing and staying low and hauling butt out of there. And he said, we're being shot at. the bad guys were shooting up, which I couldn't hear, but they were shooting at us with their rifles or whatever they were. So to answer your question, yeah.
So they did end up shooting.
They were shooting at us,
taking
and thank
fire,
God they missed me. I didn't have any holes in me when I got in the helicopter. And as far as I know, the helicopter didn't have any holes in it when they took me to the Air Force Base, where they wrapped me. I mean, they cleaned my burns and gave me a shot of morphine. The morphine didn't affect me at all. I was kind of excited that I was back in friendly territory. And I said, how about a Budweiser? Out comes the Budweiser. I mean, you could buy Chivas Regal over there for 75 cents a bottle. Now, imagine coming from the United States, and I don't know what it was, $5 or $6 or $10 a bottle. There it was 75 cents. Now, I didn't get any Chivas. I got Bud, and I loved every drop that I had.
I bet.
That
Probably
did
the best
job.
Bud you ever had. Yeah.
Best Bud, and although I don't drink, it was great at the time, and it did the trick. It made me be a little bit more relaxed. And I spent the night, here we go again, go from the Air Force Base to an Army base. An Army base consisted of a bunch of tents and the right people manning those tents and first aid and all that heavy stuff, you know. So that's where I met up with my pilot, and we each had a bed in the same tent or whatever you call it, and then we were flown back in about a day or two from there, the Army base, to our aircraft carrier. And I spent the rest of the war on the carrier and came home to Norfolk in December in time for Christmas.
Imagine
A lucky guy.
healing. These burns are healing, and probably took a while.
Oh yeah, it took a while. Yeah,
Yeah.
I was burned. I was wrapped up.
If your skin's falling off, that's third-degree burns. Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
Not ideal.
No, that's bad stuff. Especially, something you
I
use
would
every
say
day.
I was
Your hands.
between second and third degree on the burns. There was
Wow.
no charring, so I wasn't fourth class or fourth whatever, But I was definitely burned, and part of that is my fault for not wearing my gloves, flying with my Air Force. That's another thing. The heat, the flames burnt through that civilian era green flight suit that the Air Force was borrowing. Ours that we flew in were normally either orange or tan colored. Well, you can't very well go into combat, which we started out with. So we got Air Force green, and that was before the fire retardant flights.
So the suits we wore in the aviation unit were all fire retardant.
So we got back, and then that's basically it. But that was in 65, and over the years, I would tell people what happened, and I always had this little thing in my head that kept popping up. How did that happen? Why did this happen? Why did that happen? Why did I land on the ground with my feet under me and I wasn't laying on my back or on my head?
Looking out for you. Angels looking out for you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It took me 20 years to figure that out.
Yeah.
And I said,
You were meant to survive.
the Lord is looking out for me, was looking out for me. He's still looking out for me. And I don't know what he's got
wasn't your
plan,
time.
but I'm still around.
Yeah.
At the time, I had one child. We had 5 over the years. Well, those long cruises put the white in your eyes, I'll tell you that.
Well, I had to kind of recite your story while you were telling it, because you were telling it so casually, like it's nothing, but I was trying to help the viewers and listeners kind of visualize what it's like to be in an aircraft that's being shot at, that's on fire, and knowing I've got to get out of this airplane, and you're up in the air and eject. It's a pretty, I've heard it described as the most violent experience you'll ever experience and survive.
But see, at the time, Jim, You live from minute
From
to
second
minute.
to second, yeah, you're
from
not thinking
training
about
to
that.
training.
Right,
From gunfight to gunfight.
Right.
From the eyes to the holster to the hands to the trigger pull. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
It's not haphazard.
Right.
It's not.
You're just doing
random.
whatever you're
Yeah.
trained for. Then later
Yeah.
you sit back and kind of flashback or debrief yourself and go, wow, did all that just happen?
Yeah, all that happened.
Yeah.
And who's watching out for me? How did it happen where I made out? Well, there's only one answer.
Yeah.
From one man.
Clearly, yeah. You were meant
Yeah,
to bring
it's just
four
like
more
on the street.
meant to bring 4 more children into the world and
Yeah.
to become my friend and friends with a lot of other people that look up to you
Yeah.
And be here today. to
and be
tell
here
the story.
today. Yeah.
Yeah, and not only that, I'm with 2 police officers, and I feel right at home. And my daughter,
Yeah.
this is home. And I don't know who that young guy is. I thought he was
he's
your
a-
son.
this is our show
He's as
producer
ugly,
over here.
almost as ugly as you are.
He's way younger than my son, so that makes I just
oh.
turned 60 last week, so
Anyway,
Anyways,
I'm glad you're here.
hey-
Except for that freaking green lizard you got on your shirt.
Look at we got
I realized that when he walked in.
yeah, he's got his war paint on over here.
That's all right.
Hey, we anything else you want to add to that? Because we, I've been looking forward to having you on. It's taken about 3 attempts to finally get you on, and I appreciate Kimmy bringing you.
Yeah.
Kimmy's a school teacher.
Thank you for coming.
And
Oh, you
Love
it's
that.
over that fast?
It's they happen in 45 minutes. They run right by.
yeah. Anything else you want to talk about? We got a couple more minutes.
Yeah, we can
No,
we're at 30.
but I expect you asked me about police work, which I love doing what I did, like you did.
Tell us about.
And I like being on the street. I didn't go to rock concerts or any of that other
Yeah.
crap that some of those people
I spent
go
3
to.
year in the aviation unit and being a pilot myself
Yeah,
and
you were
loving
right at
flying.
home. Yeah.
I wanted to go back to the street. I was finally like, this is cool, but it's boring up here. It's cool flying around in the helicopters and doing what we did and assisting the people on the ground, but all the action was on the ground. And I did
And that's
reserve
where I
police
was.
work,
Yeah.
a volunteer.
Yeah.
To like you, it was fun. It's a good way to give back to society, but I was in it for the fun, for the
Well, I was fortunate that I rode
all
with
the neat stuff.
the air unit a couple of times in the helicopters. One time, which was really exciting for me and right up my alley, we went and flew under the Dames Point Bridge.
We never did that.
Well, I don't mind telling you because we were looking for
Yeah.
a boat that was in distress down there, so we had a good reason to go down and do that. Plus, it gives the people a thrill.
Yeah.
Did you see?
You wouldn't have had me up there. Not doing that. No, sir. Ooh.
Yeah. Well, we
I
can
got
have
nervous looking over a bridge when you had to look. They said, "Can you look over and see if there's a boat?" And you just
I flew with good pilots. I really did. I mean,
I know it's a different sensation. But
Yeah, great pilots over there. We could talk about that later, but
Yeah.
some of the best for sure. I do want to add, though, and you didn't mention this because you're a pretty humble guy. You are a Purple Heart recipient.
Yes.
Yeah, and well-deserved.
Well, I got it.
Yeah.
I was in the wrong place at the wrong time. And I hope that guy that hit us got a bowl of rice extra for his lunch.
You probably did. Probably did. But, it's cool. There's not a lot of Vietnam-era people
Left.
still around.
Yeah.
And I grew up, I was born in 61, so I remember when I was a kid when the war, from the start to the finish of the war. So that was a big part of my childhood was the Vietnam War every day on TV. So looking back, and it's pretty cool friends of mine like you, I consider cool, are Vietnam vets. A whole different mold of people, a whole different kind of people. Not a lot of people like that still left. That live those experiences and are telling us about it and went on to lead some wonderful productive lives. But a lot of those guys, they won't even talk about their Vietnam time. There's a friend of mine I need to have him on. He served in the 70s, kind of towards the end, but he was a machine gunner.
A what?
A machine gunner. That was his job. So imagine that. You got guys
helicopter?
No, he was a
Oh, a ground pounder?
he was a ground pounder.
Oh, God.
Yeah. So he was walking around with a machine gun, and that's what he did. And he owns a plumbing business. I'm not going to say his name, regular guy, normal guy, but we don't talk about.
Well, I have a good friend who was 80 airborne unit, not the 101st, which my granddaughter was in. Can I say a quickie on that?
Go ahead.
I have a granddaughter who was sent from FSU to the 101st Airborne, got air assault qualified, which means she slides down ropes from helicopters, made a couple of deployments with the Army, came back from the last one, and Special Forces were waiting for her when she got off the plane. You, young lady, now belong to us. We're over there in that building next to the 101st, and you are now a Special Forces lady.
Wow.
And she got jump qualified, being... You got a dog in here?
Yeah, that's somebody bypassing my do not disturb. That's a family member, but
Okay.
they'll just. Some people forget that I do this once in a while.
So, where was I? Oh, anyway. So she was in the 101st Airborne. She married... No. Special Forces. And she did that and deployed with them, doing whatever they do. I knew enough not to ask her. And then she got out after 6 years, married another member of the 101st who had got out before she did. They got married, and she just presented me with my first great grandchild.
Oh, so she's a family
happens
member.
to be a boy. And of course, I asked her if she immediately signed him up for the Naval Academy, which would start for him in about 18 years.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Well, look, I'm sorry to cut you short, but we got other people waiting to come in here. We've been going a little long today, so
You already had
but
the
we can
important one. The rest of the day can slide.
Hey, thanks for finally coming on.
Absolutely.
It was kind of hard to get you here.
Thanks for having me, and thanks for
Hey,
being
we can have you back.
who you are.
Yeah, thanks for being who you are, and thank God you're still here with us because
Yeah, I
you're
am
meant to
grateful.
be.
Oh, that was the one thing. Hopefully, I can take another 30 seconds. You asked me early on, and I said, I'll tell you at the end. But over those 20 years, when I'm trying to figure out, it's longer than that now, it's 65, what's that, 50-some years?
56, yeah.
It was the Lord. It took me 20 years to figure that out. The unanswered questions that
no other answer.
trained
Yeah.
for and tried to, and they worked, or things that happened that worked that I didn't train for. How did that happen? It was the Lord.
No other answer.
There's no other answer, and I don't mind telling you.
Yeah. All right. Hey, thanks for having you.
Go Knowles.
Love it. Thank you, and thanks to your daughter Kimmy for getting you here.
Did she show you the jacket?
My friend.
Did she show you?
Yeah. His he brought his original flight jacket, which is very cool. Yeah, maybe she can hold it up to the camera over here. Go ahead and get on camera,
Where's
Kimmy.
the camera? I
That's
didn't
right.
even
It's
see
right
it.
there.
Oh,
Is
okay.
it there?
Little camera right there.
This is his daughter Kimmy. Go right over there, Kimmy. Come over here to the front. That's his original flight jacket from the '60s. Pretty cool.
Tells a story.
I'd pay big money for that, but I'm sure he's not gonna part with it.
It's mine.
That's yours. So
And that was worn in combat too.
oh, no doubt. Yeah, no
On
doubt.
some missions, not all missions.
All right. Hey, thanks for coming, Kimmy. Thanks for bringing your dad.
You're welcome.
Okay, I love both y'all and my old friend. I appreciate you. All right, that's it for Real Jacks with Jim Larry Crawfish and our special guest Bob Cooper, former JSO Reserve and Vietnam era pilot. Rio.
Rio.
And thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.